council to order. Would the clerk please take the roll?
Present.
Present.
Present. At this time, I'd like you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I'd like Steve Carrera to come forward and lead us.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'll entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the minutes of the last meeting.
So moved.
Second.
The motion, the second. Clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Are there any public acknowledgements or commendations? There being none, we'll move on with public hearings. I have a sign-up sheet on docketed items, so after we go through the sign-up, if there's anyone else that wishes to speak, I want to remind you to shut off or mute any personal communication devices while you're in the chambers. And if you need to have a conversation, please take it out in the hall. The first speaker is Francisco Colon. When you come up, please state your name, address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Francisco Colon. Last name is spelled C-O-L-O-N. I live at 220 Macklin Street in Cranston. First of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to address the council. I'll tell you that I lived at 220 Macklin Street for the past 20 years or so. I've raised 2 children there. I'm currently raising a 15-year-old. Absolutely love Cranston. Very happy where I am. Very happy living in Cranston. I'll tell you that when I purchased the home at 220 Macklin Street about 20 years ago, the company across the street was Soprano Construction. I can tell you that at the time, and for several years after moving there, the owner at the time maintained his property. So it was okay living there with a company across the street. The trucks would come in, they'd go out. The owner at the time, who has since passed away, would really maintain his property. And I was for the first 5 years or so, and then at one point he passed away. I believe his son inherited the property, and to be quite frank with you, it's really been a struggle ever since then. The current owner of the property has failed to maintain that property for a number of years. I'd ask the council to please take a ride by, visit, and see what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. It's my first time addressing the council about the property across the street from me at 225 Macklin Street. I'm not someone who regularly comes in and complains, and our lives are busy, and we often are consumed by our personal lives and work. But I'm to the point now, to be perfectly honest with you, that I had to come in, I had to speak. Let me say that the applicant for the auto repair license at the property at 225 Macklin Street, I'm sure he's a wonderful guy. I'm sure he's a good guy. He's trying to make a living. I understand that. He has a family. I have no issues with that gentleman at all. Don't even know who he is. But my issue is with the owner of the property at 225 Macklin Street and his refusal to maintain the property, to be a good neighbor. Every week, at least once a week, I'm out there sweeping the curb along my home. I put up a new fence every year for the past 20 years. I've invested money into my property just to make it look good. I've tolerated the deterioration of 225 Macklin Street for a long time, and I just felt it was time for me to come in and speak. The neighborhood recently has become infested with rats. We've called, people have come over from the city, have set baits. I'm not suggesting that the owners of 225 Macklin are responsible, but they certainly could be contributing to the rat infestation in the neighborhood. There are 6 bays in front of 225 Macklin Street. What I look at, my concern with allowing Russell Cucino to have a mechanic's license at that building, what's to stop the owner of the property of allowing other automobile repair licenses to the other 6 bays that are in front of my property?
Mr. Cologne, you've got about 30 seconds left, so could you wrap
Right.
up your remarks?
I'd say that we matter. The neighbors matter. I'm sure I'd ask the council to please consider not only Mr. Cucino's needs, but also the needs of the neighborhoods, the needs of the neighbors. We too matter. We too count. And I'd ask that the council, when determining whether or not to grant the license, to consider our needs as well, and please at least go by the neighborhood and look at what we're forced to look at on a daily basis. Thank you very much.
Next person is Stephen Carrera.
Good evening, Mr. Council President, members of the council. My name is Stephen Carrera, 5 Priscilla Drive. However, this evening, I'm testifying as the Vice Chairman of the 4th Ward Democratic City Committee and the City Committee's Treasurer. I'd like to thank those council people that put the resolution on the docket with respect to the court-ordered vacancy of the 4th Ward Council seat. I feel that the people of the 4th Ward have gone without representation far too long. I feel that due to a dilemma that existed with respect to a residency issue, which was resolved by the Board of Elections some time ago, that for some reason there is no decision being granted by the Superior Court. I think that this council is totally within its right to request from this Superior Court judge the decision so that someone could be sitting in that seat representing the members of the 4th Ward. It's about representation. It's about the city charter. And I would respectfully request a unanimous vote on this issue with the 7 council people that are here. This is not a partisan issue. This is a charter issue which should be held in higher regard. Thank you.
Next speaker is Sylvia Cambiel.
Hello, my name is Sylvia Campbell. I live at 226 Macklin Street, and I want to thank you all again for listening to me. I have been here more than once. I lived on Macklin Street. 1970, we built our home. We didn't have a problem. We knew Soprano was there. We got along fantastic. He had his office in front of my house and told me this is the way it would be. His trucks did come in and out. They were gone in the morning. They came back at 4 o'clock. They were very respectful. And has my neighbor told you the same thing? When the children took over, they started renting it to mechanics. And that causes a lot of trouble. I mean, you can't have a rose garden with mechanics. They make noise. And with the windows open, you can't hear the oil. It's horrible, and once again, I'm going to say, please, somebody help us. And not with the suggestion that you bought the property. Yeah, we did, but it was not like that. Tyler Truck is owned by Soprano. I was there when he asked me about the building. And it would face Calder Street. There would be small mechanic works. Sorry to say, that isn't the truth. So that's all I have to say is the street is getting bad. I have people coming down. We can't walk around Calder Street. And at one time we did. Our children rode our bikes there. There's trucks and cars and mechanics. Believe me, it's horrible. We have no peace. I am begging you, please help us out. Give us some rights. And then we tell them they have certain times that they open and close, and they're working all times. They come in and tell you one thing, not this new young gentleman, in which I do feel bad for, but like I even told him, you're renting, you can rent elsewhere. We own these homes. Seniors, where can we go? So please help us, is all I'm going to ask, and I hope I don't have to come back. That, they can decide. I don't want them to think it's us. You don't have a right. Look at the people. You can't even put a truck on my street if I park my car in front of my house. So something is wrong. There's been a mistake made, but we can correct it. But by not giving mechanics, it's not a place for mechanics. We have other businesses there, and we have no problems with them. Thank you.
Next person that signed up was Dick Tomlins.
Dick Tomlins, 400 Farmington Avenue. My friend and colleague Steve Carrera put it pretty well on this Ward 4 issue. I call him a colleague because most of the time we think alike. Once in a while he goes off my ranch, but I always keep a saddled horse ready for him to rejoin me. This issue is one, from my knowledge, has a lot of faults in it, maybe a lot of blame to go around. From the very outset, it was not handled properly, almost at any venue. So the issue is, what does the people of Ward 4 do? Forget about the personalities involved. In a sense, they're not important at all. It's only the people in Ward 4. They've been without having representation for how long now? That is the unfairest thing that anybody in government could do or put up with, is to allow constituencies to go without representation. So I think it's about time. It doesn't matter which side of the fence you come down to. I don't really think it's a Republican or a Democratic issue. What it is an issue of fairness. That ward should not go on as being unrepresentative. So again, as Steve mentioned, I think the council as a whole should put personalities and everything aside, put party aside, and vote to have this brought to a conclusion. Thank you.
Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak on a docketed item? Please.
Hi, y'all. You know me. My name is Dolores Sisler. I live at 108 Eldridge Street, right over there. Mr. Pelletier has told me, I've been away for a while, that he is no longer representing Ward 4 and that tonight there is something on the docket about pensions. So I would like to remind everyone that my house has been mortgaged to the hilt by you all, and there's no room to raise taxes anymore. So anything about municipal pensions, the big answer is screw you. There's no money. The checkbook is empty. There's no pension. And I have to say how frustrated I am to sit and waste my time, and all these people finally come to City Council, which I'm thrilled to see them, but to stand here and talk about nothing more than code enforcement issues. We pay a whole staff of people out here and provide vehicles for them to drive around and do nothing but code enforcement so that this nice man here does not have to deal with crap next to his property. I don't care if it's a residence or a business. And I don't know where Emilio Navarro is tonight, but I have no representation. And I'm quite frankly sick and tired of not having a mayor here representing me either. As for Ward 4, I had just had a nice discussion with Rob Pelletier and the head of, I think it's Ward 4's Democratic Party, that there's a very simple solution. Rob Pelletier could leave his girlfriend and move back into Ward 4 and represent Ward 4 and not have a problem. You see, I'm a religious zealot. I believe in the Ten Commandments where it says, "Thou shalt not commit adultery," but I'm in by God, the best state for it, because there's a law in Rhode Island that says adultery is illegal. And it's not sex between two men, or two men and women that aren't married. It's sex between anybody that's not married, and it's punishable by a $500 fine and a criminal record. So let's see some code enforcement and law enforcement here, folks, because you're wasting my time, and I quite frankly cannot afford it.
Anyone else wishing to speak? Please come forward. But is she driving, is the point? She's going, but is she driving? That's the question. Anyone else in the public wishing to speak? All right, that section.
Let's see you fill those shoes.
That section is closed. The next section is for resolutions.
Council President,
There's a yes, Councilman.
before you go on this, I'm going to recuse myself from this resolution vote as I am a employee of the judiciary. So I've already filled out the form. I'm
Okay.
not asking you, I'm telling you.
Okay.
Council President, I'd like to move this resolution
I'll
support.
read it first.
So you're gonna read it? Okay.
Resolution in support of the Rhode Island Superior Court and Judge Taft Carter in issuing a prompt judgment regarding Councilwoman Bucci. Sponsored by Council President Lupino, co-sponsored by Councilman Arquette. Is there a motion?
So moved.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Councilman Stichels.
Just a question for the city council's attorney in this matter, Mr. Quinlan. Do you have an opinion on whether this is a good idea tactically?
That's a good question. I don't know whether it's a good idea tactically. I mean, we've been back and forth with the court. We've been in communication with the court repeatedly. We've been initially, once we were told to go to the Board of Elections, when the Board of Elections rendered a decision, we were told the court would render a decision that Monday or that Friday, and we called them and there's no answer. So I think, if we don't take a step, we have renewed our petition in the Supreme Court to ask the Supreme Court to step in and do something. I don't know what other steps it could take. I mean, I don't think the resolution, I don't look at it as a strategic issue. I was asked to prepare it because the council felt that this was an issue that should be brought to the court's attention, that the council would like this question answered, because if we're going to have a special election, or are we going, what are we going to do here? We're running out of time. So I can't comment on whether it's a good idea.
Oh, second, Councilman Stichels? Councilman Favicchio?
Thank you, Council President. While I understand that this is obviously of concern to many parties, especially Ms. Bucci, who's been waiting or sat for a while, and as Mr. Tomlin said, this has nothing to do with personalities or parties. But I think it's totally inappropriate for us to be asking a judge who's waiting to make a decision on a case to have a communication from one party, because basically the city, through its various agencies, such as the Board of Canvassers and our own counsel to the City Council, are parties to this case. It's unethical, certainly I would never put my name to anything like this, because I think as an attorney, I would be subject to some sanctions for an ex parte or a communication from one of the
Are
parties.
you saying you're going to recuse?
I will vote against it, clearly, because I think it's totally unethical. You've got separation of powers issues. It's one thing if it was a generic situation, but you're talking about a specific case with a specific judge, and all the parties are represented by attorneys, including us. For us to try to do that, you don't see that in any other case before the courts where one party sends in a letter to the judge. It's unacceptable. It's not accepted by the judges, and it certainly, to me, is grossly inappropriate. I understand the frustration, but everyone's represented in this, and they have attorneys. Mr. Quinlan's gone to the Supreme Court as well as the Superior Court on this, so I think we just have to let the attorneys do their job and go forward with it. But I certainly cannot put my name to this positively.
So, to my question, are you going to recuse? You said you feel you would be sanctioned if you put your name to this.
If I voted in favor of a communication such as this, I would certainly.
No, the recusal process, and our attorney will explain this to you. It says that whenever you vote on something, it cannot either positively or negatively impact you. So by you voting against it, that might potentially positively impact you, because you said you would not vote against it because it could potentially
No, I certainly
damage
would
you in
not
some
vote
way.
in favor of it. I'm not sure whether the recusal is necessary. Perhaps Mr. Quinlan could.
What I'd like to first address is that I don't believe you're a party to the suit. I think they only sued the Democratic council. Mr. Spoke only sued 6 or 5 councilmen in this matter. First off. Secondly, I think you've raised a good issue. Before you report it, I suggest that maybe it should be sent to all the legal counsel in the case, so they're aware of the filing that the city council is filing with the report. And I think that would cure any ex parte contact because all council has a text. It's sort of like when you write a letter to the judge and say, when we're getting a decision or what we're going to do, you're required to send that to all council. It's not barred as long as you give the other parties notice that you're sending it. That might be a way to cure that concern. I know your other concern is the separation of powers issue that you brought up, and I'm not sure I understand how the municipality communicating its wishes concerning what's turned out to be almost a stalemate in city government that's pending before a court. I certainly understand the concern of the board on that, but I think, it could, the council could cure that part of a section by sending it out to all council before forwarding to the court, so they all have an opportunity to respond. This is just, as you said, one client in a multi-party litigation in the city council.
And I think I'll ask to recuse, since I am an officer of the court, so that could create a problem.
So your remarks will be stricken from the record because under the recusal, you're not supposed to take part in the discussion. So strike all the comments that you made. Councilman Arquette?
Thank you, Council President. Just my understanding of this resolution is send a message to the judicial system that it's been long enough. I think they've been dragging their feet, and we need to have a conclusion on this issue. The State Board of Elections has rendered a decision to allow Maria Bucci to represent Ward 4. Ward 4 Ward Committee, its citizens are lobbying the City Council to gain representation. Ward 4 did not have representation through the entire budget process. So the entire budget process was absent a council person from Ward 4, which is, I think, atrocious. I think the judicial system needs to render a decision, and this is a message this council is going to send to the judge. Thank you.
Councilman Donahue?
Thank you, Council President Lupino. This is a difficult one because I too share the
Councilman
frustration.
Donahue, could you please use the microphone?
I too share the frustration that the Ward 4 seat has been vacant for so long. And I think actually Mr. Tomlins characterized it best, that the whole situation regarding the Ward 4 seat this year seems to be just one mistake after another, basically. And I feel that for the reasons that Councilman Favicchio articulated earlier, why make a potentially additional mistake? The judiciary has it in their hands. I disagree slightly with the solicitor that a legislative body passing an ordinance, or a resolution rather, giving direction to the judiciary does, in my mind, present a conflict. That when I saw it, that's what struck me first. I do think it's been horribly unfair to the residents of Ward 4 that they do not have a specific council person representing them, and it's my hope that this will be resolved soon, because Councilman Arquette is correct. We went through a budgeting process without a Ward 4 council person here, and we finished the redistricting process without a Ward 4 council person here. And we worked together to make it happen, but it's a tragedy, really, for those residents. But I can't support this resolution because, again, I just don't think this is the right way to go about getting to the end result. Thank you, Mr. Council President.
With the lack of the vice president to turn the gavel over to, the next one would be the majority leader, so the minority leader would be taking the gavel, which is locked in the drawer, and the clerk is on medical leave. So use your
minority leader gets the
so
gavel,
use your fist. I wish to be recognized. Yeah, I did think, as not only as a citywide councilman, but primarily as a resident of Ward 4, I felt that it was very, very disingenuous to the voters to not have a representation in Ward 4 during the budget process. It's not as cut and dry as Ms. Isler wishes to make it. You know, Councilman Pelletier did resign, and that's why we're in the situation that we are here now. With all the other innuendo going on about, I still state, and I've said it 1,000 times, what we had was a resignation and a position to fill. I just don't know how temporary a temporary restraining order is. We were asked by the judge to go to the Board of Elections. We waited for a hearing, went through a very lengthy, detailed process there. The Board of Elections said that Mr. Pelletier, although he had moved out, was still a qualified elector of Ward 4. His intention was there to remain. And due to the fact that he resigned, that we had a position to fill. When it was presented to the judge, and I was not at the chambers that day, but the way it was related to me was that she failed to remove or lift the temporary restraining order because there was nothing in writing from the Board of Elections. But we have that now. We have presented that to them. I don't understand. No one has presented a good reason for not going forward and asking the judge to act. That's what we pay judges for. There were some other issues that she was supposedly dealing with in the interim, but they have law clerks. This is going through enough of the process, and you're holding approximately 14,000 residents of Ward 4 at bay. They have no representation. It's inherently unfair, and it's unfair for any of my colleagues to vote against the resolution for the reasons that they're giving. We need to have representation in Ward 4, and I would just ask you to think a second, if you were a voter, if you were a resident of Ward 1, and this whole process, the whole budget process, the assignment of taxes and tax rates and sewer rates and all of the other intricacies of the budget went through, and you had no one there to be your voice. That's what we have here. So I would encourage my colleagues to support me in this, and I don't think anyone should fear a retaliation. I mean, I think they're supposed to be judges. They're supposed to be fair. And I can't imagine someone trying to retaliate with someone because they voted one way or another on a resolution that just was asking for a simple answer. Let's lift the restraining order and get on with city business. Thank you. Is there anyone else from the council that wishes to speak? Councilman Luciano.
While I do agree with a lot of what has been said, as a paralegal, I don't think this is the right way to approach the judge. I think that the attorneys, I've typed letters like this. I think the attorneys need to do this, not the council. I think we're stepping over a line here that could be serious. We are a government, that's a governing body. We can't muddy the waters any further. I don't agree that Ward 4 does not have representation. I'm a citywide, so I represent everybody. I don't know about what the other citywide people think, but I've helped people from all of the wards. It doesn't matter to me, I don't care. Call me. So I don't think that they're completely, maybe they don't realize they can contact a citywide, but I've helped people from all of the wards. But I'm not going to be voting in favor of this because I really think the approach is wrong. Perhaps a letter from council, with a copy to opposing council to the judge would be better. But this, I don't think this is going to bode well.
Anyone else?
The chair calls on Council President Lupino.
Since it seems to be somewhat of an agreement from some of the other council members that no one has said anything about the other leading statements. I believe they are stated, and they are the truth, and they are facts. So what I would propose is a friendly amendment to the last paragraph. The last paragraph. No, not from the.
Councilman should not be over there in a private conversation when a hearing's going on. I want to hear his input. That's totally inappropriate. And it's against decency of this audience that is sitting here to hear his position on this. There should be no private counsel, no private conversation over there in that corner.
The last paragraph, as it is stated here, reads, "Now therefore be it resolved that the Cranston City Council hereby requests that Judge Taft Carter finally lift the temporary restraining against Councilwoman Bucci, allowing her to serve her Ward 4 constituents in accordance with the Cranston City Charter and the Rhode Island general laws." I would make a friendly amendment that says, "Now therefore be it resolved that the Cranston City Council hereby requests of its solicitors that they send a letter to Judge Taft Carter asking her to finally lift the temporary restraining against Councilwoman Bucci." This would alleviate the situation that the council is approaching the judge and the judiciary through our acceptable legal process. So I would make that as a friendly amendment. And I make that in the form of a motion.
Could the clerk read back the friendly amendment?
I hope that this is acceptable to the council people that said that they were uncomfortable directly approaching the judge with something like this, that this be done through the legal process.
Thank you, Council President. My issue with the final paragraph of the resolution and with the friendly amendment is the same, which is that we assume that the second statement of the resolution is what we agreed to, which is that Maria Bucci was properly appointed by the council to fill a vacancy. And it's my understanding that what is before Judge Carter is a determination to see whether that is in fact the case. So what we would be asking for in the current resolution and what we would be asking for through the solicitor in the friendly amendment is simply for her to make a decision on one side of that. And that's where my issue is. I think that that's not the place of the council. The place of the council is, I think, to let the judiciary make a decision. And then we would have to respond to that decision one way or the other. And it seems to me that she's either going to decide that Councilwoman Bucci was, as it's suggested in this resolution, properly appointed and return her to her seat, or not. And if not, then we have to deal with whatever the consequences of that are. So those are the specifics of my objection. So I won't be supporting the friendly amendment, unfortunately.
Councilman Arquette.
Thank you, Council President. And with all respect to my colleague, Minority Leader Donahue, that the second paragraph you referred to, Council, and State Board of Election already rendered a decision. The State Board of Election stated that Maria Bucci was properly appointed by this body due to the fact that former Councilman Pelletier resigned his seat. So that decision has been rendered by the State Board of Elections.
That's all right.
There being no further discussion, we have two absentees, two recusals. So will the clerk please take the roll of the remaining members?
Wait. We're voting on the friendly amendment first?
We're voting on the amendment, yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And on the resolution as amended, clerk, please take the roll.
No.
No. Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Motion passes 3-2. On to report of committees. Finance Committee. Councilman Arquette.
Thank you, Council President. The resolution authorizing motor vehicle tax abatements was passed in favor from the Finance Committee to this body.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
Council President, the tax interest waiver approvals as recommended by the City Treasurer were passed out of committee favorably by the Finance Committee.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Clerk, please take the roll if there's no discussion.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, is that all you have, Councilwoman?
Yes, Council President.
Thank you.
Safety Services.
Safety Services License Committee, Richard Santa Maria.
Thank you, Council President. Phoenix Truck and Auto Service, 225 Macklin Street. Auto repair license. This is appeal from a May 7th, 2012 denial. The denial was 2-1. I guess this just comes before the council. So it's recommended not to approve it in committee.
Okay, so the report back from the committee was a denial 2-1. And the applicant has asked to hear the full council for an appeal. Is there any discussion? I have a question to the solicitor after hearing the testimony from some of the neighbors, because I was the dissenting vote. There were two others that voted against this, and I voted for it because
Yes.
I didn't see any violation of what the property is used for or has been used for. Some of the concerns that the neighbors had, although I recognize were things that go on in the course of a business. But one of the people that from the neighborhood mentioned something about the nature of the truck repairs. And is there anything in the code that says that the trucks that are repaired would have to be under a certain, for example, gross vehicle weight at that location? Does the code get that specific? Because I know when the gentleman came before us, he said that he was dealing primarily with smaller vans and box trucks. And he claimed under oath to not be talking about big, heavy construction vehicles. That wasn't in his realm or his expertise.
I can confer with Solicitor Quinlan, who's shaking his head no. I'm not personally aware of any of those kind of limitations in that area. Furthermore, yeah, there's no size limitations. I mean, furthermore, that I don't know how much you want me to expound on this, but I mean, there was another truck repair shop on the docket that night, which was, I think, less than a tenth of a mile from this gentleman's, which got approved.
Again, and I thought, and so I think that Mr. Santa Maria believed that he was finally going to get a good night's sleep when this came out of committee and was denied, and now we have the appeal. Again, I would still have to support the applicant in this because there is no legal reason to deny him his right to do business at that location. The issues that the neighbors seem to have are with the landlord of the property. And he's the person that should be brought in to say, where are the recommendations from the former recommendation as far as making it a better or more attractive situation. It's a tough neighborhood. It's a neighborhood of very nicely kept residential homes against an industrial area is what it is. It's not your usual mix of residential to lighter commercial. And I sympathize with you, but it's, with this issue, I think we can, work with this gentleman because he seemed to be reasonable, and put some restrictions on, I think we were very specific, and that's important. We were very specific. Councilman Stikos passed a resolution and we passed an ordinance earlier on in this session limiting hours of operation, that we have to go, that people that go before the safety services and want to extend their hours from what they originally agreed to must go through a hearing. So we specifically asked this gentleman what his hours would be. So again, I'm sorry I have to vote with the applicant, but I believe that that's the proper thing to do. That's the legal thing to do. Councilman Santa Maria.
Thank you, Council President. Through you to the solicitor.
Yes,
If you remember in committee, I pulled out a 1972 zoning board minutes,
Yes, you did.
which said that upon the variance of the property, they were supposed to put up shrubbery and/or a fence.
Yes,
Now, we're going on like 50 years now?
it was 1972.
Well, I
believe.
was still in high school, and there has been no shrubbery or fence there.
If
My
I-
question is, since there is no fence there,
Yeah.
they didn't follow the restrictions for the zoning variance. Am I correct on that?
Well, before I answer that question, I think it might be helpful.
This is directed towards the landlord. Again, I have no
Oh,
problem
I
with-
understand. I think it might be helpful before we go on this, just if I could, Director Capuano has been involved with building inspections to get to the bottom of this. And if I could read an email that we received today from Stan Peichel, Council President, if that would be appropriate. The email is, I went to the property on Macklin Street today and met with the tenant applying for the license to operate Phoenix Truck Repair. He was very helpful in describing the issues the neighbors are having, which have to do mostly with property maintenance. He is in the process of cleaning up debris left behind by the former tenants and is knowledgeable about the property. He had a copy of our zoning certificate allowing the use of repairs in the M1 zone by variance and a copy of the decision from 1972. He stated the fenced area adjacent to the property was that which satisfied the condition of the variance. This seemed to make sense, but cannot be determined to be true at this time. I will look into the matter further and see if I can verify this. I'll also contact the property owner to discuss the course of action on maintenance to satisfy the neighborhood and to try to ease some tension in the air. Signed, Stan Peichel, Director, Building Official, Department of Inspection, City of Cranston. So the two points that I was making the other night at the committee was that there are two distinct issues here. Does the applicant have the right to operate the premises for which he sought at the location that he chose? I think the answer to that is yes. The second question is, has the property owner complied and has the property owner been a good neighbor, so-called, to the people on Macklin Street? I think the answer to that is clearly in doubt at this point, given the testimony and the debris that even this tenant has been forced to clean up. So I see no problem in approving the license for the applicant, and I also see no problem in sending building maintenance or issuing a show cause to the gentleman who owns the property to clean that property up. I see it and I continue to see it. We differ, but that's okay, on this issue being two different problems. One is the property owner and one is this tenant who has, if I can use the term, has absolutely no record of any malfeasance or anything bad in the city of Cranston that he has done whatsoever. So if we could approach it as a two-stage problem, I think everyone could wind up with a good solution.
If I could just follow up, Council President, just one quick, the smell.
Yep.
The smell's been the big complaint from the neighborhood, all the way over to Eastview. It's not the sight of it, it's the smell of it. Now, if a fence and arborvitae's can stop the smell, I'm all for it.
Right, the smell apparently was from what I understand, there was a company called Drew Oil that operated there for many years, and there was reference in the meeting minutes from, I think, someone in the administration to have the Department of Environmental Management look into that smell problem. And you know, it's important to also note that that smell predated probably this gentleman ever thinking about opening up his truck location at that premises, so I don't see how the smell could be attributed to him specifically.
There's one other point of clarification I want to bring up to the members that may not have been at the Safety Services and License Committee. The property in question is an L-shaped building. The portion that the applicant intends to occupy is not facing Macklin Street. It faces a little alley on the side. It is not subject to the buffer zone that was mentioned in the former variance. So he will not be occupying that building right across from the people that have been talking about it. So it's an L-shaped, he's on the upper end of the L. He's in an area between Macklin and Calder Street, which is a parallel street. Just, for your point of clarification. Councilman Stichels.
I'd just like to ask Chairman Santa Maria if he could elaborate on why he's opposing this, why the
Do you want a
committee...
history of the whole area? Because we could be here all night, but I'm just, the issue was, basically, the complaints came from Macklin. When I got this, I'm sorry, can you hear me now? When I got the complaints on this matter, it was all the way back to Eastview, which is another street over. The smell is very strong. Now, I'm not saying it's from him, because obviously he hasn't been there yet. But it kind of like raised my eyebrows when I heard it was from Eastview. There's been other issues there too. There's been issues with trucks going down the street and pulling down wires. We made it so that they had to go into a Calder. Rahani Plastics a few years ago had a fire. They left the rubble there for 2 years before it finally got cleaned up. Again, I know these are all landlord issues. We have one of the constituents who spoke's daughter is asthmatic. This is not going to help her condition any. It's just a square peg in a round hole is the best way I can put it. I don't know why houses were ever approved there, because it's back from the old 1930s when the New York, New Haven Railroad used to unload their cargo there. So it's been M1 for a long time. So that's basically it. It's just
Councilman Stichels, you can go on.
So the site has been a problem for a long time.
as long as I've been councilman preceding me, yes.
Has what?
As long as I've been a councilman and preceding me, yes.
Okay.
Mrs. Cambio has documentation from the 1980s.
And this came up because this is a new business that wants to start there? Or
It's an empty building. It's an auto repair license. And they just felt it was going to exacerbate the situation, and I agree with them. So,
Okay, but that, right, if we went there today, that auto repair place would not be there.
right, yeah, he has not started operating yet. He told me he looked at a couple of cars. He's very honest with me, very straightforward. I told him his license hadn't been approved yet.
So the field...
The gentleman's not really the issue. It's the whole conundrum of the area and the type of businesses that are there. If there was a convenience store going there, we probably wouldn't be having this argument. But there's a business going there that's going to exacerbate the situation.
In this case, the applicant, maybe if you want to hold your questions for a minute, the applicant, because he had the right to be heard in the safety services and license, he has the opportunity to be heard. So you would come forward, state your name and address, and you get to speak.
Thank you, Council President, council members. My name is Russell Casino. It's 225 Macklin. Like the Council President stated, the building is L-shaped. I had taken some pictures, and my garage bays are facing Tyler Truck Service, which also has a bay in this alley that a license was granted on the 7th of this month to do the same thing. Until the 7th, I haven't met any of the residents. These past couple of weeks, we've spoken. I'm trying to clean up the area. I really don't want to cause any problems or more problems for them. They were under the impression that I might have been doing auto body work or painting. I am not. It's a repair business, so none of that is happening. I'm not burning waste oil, which has been done at other buildings in the area. I have a gas furnace in there that obviously I haven't even started. I'm not using it all. I'm just trying to run a small business and do what I can.
Does any of the councilmen have any questions for the applicant?
Yes.
Councilman Favicchio,
Thank you, Council President.
through the chair.
Through the chair, I'd just like to ask the applicant some questions. Now, you've gotten to meet some of the neighbors.
Correct.
And have they expressed their concerns?
And they have, yes.
And judging from that, what about the smell issue? Can you address that initially?
I believe, like the council president has said, it has been probably there long before me. I really don't think I wouldn't say adding to it, because I really haven't done anything. The building's there. I know a state representative come by, and they are looking to have DEM look into it. Further than that, I'm really not positive. The town inspector came by today, and he looked through my building, around it. He says the fact of the matter was, I was in compliance with the zoning, and that if I had cleaned up around there and maybe talked with the neighbors, maybe something could be worked out, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Just a clarification. When he talked about DEM and someone else mentioned the former Drew Oil, that's at a different address. That is not,
Yeah,
I would say a portion of it is slightly adjacent to the building that this gentleman would occupy, but it's on Calder Street on two different parcels, which is not at the location where Soprano owns this property.
May I continue, Council President? Are there any oil tanks in the ground, or any?
No.
There are no or gasoline tanks,
Nope.
nothing in the ground.
No.
Do you store any oil there, or will you be storing oil?
I use oil. I will use oil if I'm approved. As for waste oil, I'm sure I will have some, but it'll be removing, probably on a monthly basis from a company. It's not, I won't be burning it. I won't be storing any large amounts of it.
Okay. And what are your hours of operation intended to be?
Probably like 8 to 5, maybe a half a day on Saturday till 12.
And you have no problem talking to the neighbors to try
Nope.
to satisfy their needs? Okay. Thank you.
Councilman Donahue?
Thank you, Council President. If I could continue along the lines, Councilman Favicchio, good evening, Mr. Cucino. Thank you for coming tonight. I just actually have a follow-up question to the councilman's. As you've been talking to the neighbors, outside of the smell, how would you describe the concerns that you've been hearing from the neighborhood? What do they consist of?
Property value, the maintenance of the building. Mainly that. They seem to have concern about children. I really never see children in that area.
Can you be more specific about children's
Like
safety
children,
issues?
yeah, riding bicycles or something with the trucks up and down the street, which not so much pertains to me because I'm not on that street. I'm more on Calder Street. There's a fenced-in yard for my garage that is on Calder Street. My garage bays are actually in a throughway between the two streets. But I really don't go on Macklin. So other than that,
So if I may, through the chair, it sounds like, there's not much you can do about real estate values. If you could, we'd have you working all throughout the city.
yeah, right.
And the safety issue, I imagine you would encourage your customers to be thoughtful about
Right.
the fact that it is a residential neighborhood. But talk a little bit about the upkeep. What's the plan for that?
They're concerned about paving the lot. I don't know how much of that I could physically do. As the day went on today and I was visited by the inspector, he had asked that I was in the process of actually cleaning when he had showed up, and he had asked that I clean somewhat in front of the building and the side where former residents and tenants had left stuff, which I have done already today. And granted, there's still more I can do, and I will. And I'm definitely willing to work with them and do what I can.
If I may, through the chair, one last question. And forgive me, Mr. Cucino, I'm not on the Safety Services Committee and wasn't at that meeting, but are you currently operating Phoenix Truck and Auto Services in another location?
No, I'm not.
This is a new business for you?
Yes, correct.
I assume you currently are in this trade somewhere else, or?
Well, I had actually worked directly next door at Tyler Truck Service for years, and come this past February, at the beginning of March, I had walked in, and at the end of the day on Friday, he told me I was being laid off because he was going out of business, and that was pretty much the end of my job.
What was your stimulus into?
Right.
Thank you. If I may, through the chair, just to the solicitor. Mr. President, if I could ask the solicitor a clarifying question.
Yes.
Evan, if I heard you correctly, what you're saying is that there's no, that this is a legally accepted use for that property. And in your opinion, the issue is not with the applicant, it's with the property owner's maintenance of the property and issues that may be there that go decades back in terms
Correct.
of potential environmental problems.
It's an M1 zone, so his prospective use is allowed. And there are a lot.
This council to seem like it's anti-business. I don't want myself to seem like anti-business. However, there's been a strong public outcry from the citizens of Ward 5 around Maitland Street pertaining to the problems and the dangers of that business operating at that location. We stated that in 1972 there was a code that requested a buffer zone, a fence or hedges at that location. 40 years have gone by. There is no buffer zone, there is no fence, there are no hedges. From the citizens of that area, while on the ordinance committee, I heard testimony pertaining to odors, strange smells, the noise at various hours, and today we hear about safety issues, children riding their bicycles and trucks driving up and down that location. With all that being said, this body has a responsibility to its citizenry. The council is here to protect the public, to make the neighborhood safe and noise-free. So I think we need to deny this application. There are other vacant buildings in the city. I'm sure areas that are zoned industrial for this gentleman to prosper at this business. I will be voting yes to deny the application. Thank you.
Councilman Stichels?
Question for Chairman Santamaria. This, you know, I'm also not on the committee, so these things are new to me. And this gentleman seems to be making some improvements. Do you see a possibility where if we were to table this and he continued to make improvements, that the Safety Services Committee might then approve his application? Or do you think it's not?
I just think that the property is so troubled now that just adding this business would just add to the problem. You know, if it, you can't, you know, you're talking about different buildings and different addresses. The owners don't have an address. They just permeate wherever they want, you know, because building Drew Oil had odors doesn't mean they don't smell it, and Drew Oil's not there. I mean, odors are odors. They're gonna, he said he has oil, you know, I mean, it's gonna make odors. They're very close to the neighbor. They're right across the street, a stone's throw from houses.
Clarification on the statement that you made. Contained oil has no odor. I'm in the oil business.
Okay.
Contained oil has no odor.
So you can't smell it? You can't smell it either?
If it's contained, you cannot smell it. Okay, hey. Councilwoman Luciano.
Through the chair to the solicitor. All right, so we're talking about, you know, we want to be business friendly, we want to help the constituents in that neighborhood. What about just solving the problem? If the problem is the property owner, where's the property owner? Why isn't the property owner being fined? Why isn't the property owner being forced to do something that was dated in 1972? Like, there seems to be a lot of failures here. Maybe the source of the problem needs to be addressed first.
I agree with Councilwoman Luciano because I've sent inspections there numerous times.
I mean, what if we tabled this, held the property owner accountable, got the property into the condition that it's supposed to be, and going back to whatever 1972 said about hedges and things like that, clean it up and then readdress it, and then maybe
Well-
everybody could be happy.
Well, I think we're kind of melding in from one to another. What I understood was a fence or hedges. So now it's, the comments have kind of morphed towards hedges. There are no hedges. But there is a fence up, and Stan noted the fence, okay? We just don't know whether or not that's the fence that was referred to in the 1972 variance.
Okay, why not? How do we find out?
I wasn't there. I don't know.
Can I, Council President?
But the problem you have is, right now, we have an application before us, and the risk that we're running, quite honestly, is to be viewed as a superior Board of Zoning Review and Compliance and Building official all in one. And really, those are issues that aren't really before the council. We're dealing with someone who is properly zoned in an area where the neighbors don't want, which is somewhat familiar to some other cases that have been before us before. I see it as two distinct problems. There's nothing certainly that this individual has done to contribute to it. The people apparently don't want the trucks to return to the area, which I understand, but the property's still zoned M1. If the property's not in the condition as anticipated, I don't think that the applicant should bear the brunt of that. The property owner should. And if this council feels as strongly as the two questions previously intimated do, then we should issue a hearing as to what should be done to that property. And, Stan was there today to investigate it. There are pictures here that the appellant has brought, so you can get a different flavor of the area. And it's,
Well, I think the root of the problem needs to be addressed first, before we move forward. If they're two distinct problems.
I make no claim to know the financial condition of the owner of the property, but certainly it's been vacant for a while, and it could very well be that this rental would allow him, or allow them, or whomever owns it, to continue to improve the property. What the applicant has told you he's been doing is he's cleaning up not only his own area, he's cleaning up the Calder Street property, which these people have been complaining about. So he's making a good, best effort to be a good neighbor, but I don't know what the financial condition is of the owner of the property. It could be that a lack of tenants there is preventing him from doing any further cleanup. So you're putting a condition before a condition. I think you have to take what the applicant is asking for. He's asking to do business in a building that's zoned properly to do business right across the alleyway from a business that was granted a license to do the same business on the same evening that he came before Safety Services. So that's what's in front of you. As far as cleaning up the property, we still have the Safety Services, we still have the building inspections. If Councilman Santa Maria has stated, he's sent building inspection, or asked building inspection to go there many times. Mr. Peichel has told us that he has a log of complaints, so that should be in his log somewhere, so we can look at the complaints at Safety Services. So I think what I would ask the colleagues to do to avoid any more legal issues is approve the license based on his hours of operation and call in the owner of the property to get the other issues that the people are complaining about. They're certainly not complaining about him. He hasn't started business yet. And on the other side of that, the cleanup that's going on now wouldn't be happening if it weren't for the applicant. Councilman Favicchio.
Thank you, Council President. As a reminder, too, one of the resolutions that I presented and we passed earlier this year was to urge the municipal court to impose the fines and sanctions that are in our code more vigorously. And if Mr. Peichel brings this forward and the owner doesn't comply, then we do have some hefty sanctions financially that can be placed upon the owner of the property. But I think that is a distinct issue from what this gentleman is doing. So I think we should enforce our own ordinances and try to bring the property owner to
Let me
justice.
follow up on that. I'll follow up on my colleague and you. Do we have a report, how many times they've been there in the past year? And if the landlord's at fault, has he been cited? Has there been any
But
citation?
again, these are issues you're bringing up that have nothing to do with this applicant's.
Well, if he hasn't been
situation.
cited, then they found no problems? There's a lot of unanswered questions here. How many times have they been here in the last year? I'd like to ask how many times the inspector has been there in the last year. Have they not noticed this mess that the owner's cleaning up, and all this time that he's cleaning up on his own, which he doesn't really have to? Where were the inspectors? You're talking about
But
the
again,
judge.
we're getting.
You're talking about the judge in
Councilman,
court.
we're getting off track now. What's before us is the Safety Services Committee denied.
Correct.
He's appealing to us. So the motion is going to be to overturn or accept his application for licensing at that location. So, does the applicant feel that you've had enough time to speak?
Yes.
Okay, you can be seated. Councilman Marquetto, last word on this?
I just want to know, in the process of the business, is there, I saw those photos, there is a parking lot at the business, and what is that lot qualify as far as parking? How many cars can you take in that lot?
Possibly six.
Six cars? Do you think there'd be an overflow? You think cars would end up on the street during the course of the day?
I couldn't do that. No. I don't have enough room, and I can only do so much.
So the answer is no, you think you have adequate parking
Yes.
for the business to continue? Oh, thank you. All right, thank you, Council President, for that indulgence.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion.
Now, wait a minute, can we clarify? A yes vote will mean?
That his license is approved, but I'm waiting for a motion first.
I'll move approval of the appeal.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Just a clarification, the photographs will be entered into the record. You're going to let us keep those. With that being said, now, again, clarification, if you vote yes, he will be granted the license. If you vote no, he will be denied. So, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
Yes. When you-
Ordinance 412-6.
When you do see your landlord, let him know that somebody's looking for him.
Ordinance 412-6, ordinance amendment of Title 10, Chapter 32 of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, titled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Sprague Avenue and Douglas Street.
Excuse me. Please be respectful.
Have Dick Tomlins tell her to stop talking. Tony.
Take it outside.
Continue, Councilman.
412-6, ordinance amendment of Title 10, Chapter 32 of the Code of the City of Cranston, 2005, entitled Motor Vehicles and Traffic, Sprague Avenue and Douglas Street, stop intersections enumerated. This is a unanimous vote. Council President, there is a deaf child on the street. Councilman Arquetto would urge passage for that reason.
Motion to
Okay,
approve.
is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
The motion and second. Any discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Nothing further, Council President.
Thank you, Councilman. Public hearings. This is open to any matters on any undocketed items. I have a list, and the first is Stephen Carrera.
Good evening. My name is Steve Carrera. Council President, members of the City Council, I rise this evening with respect to...
You're at 5 Priscilla, is that correct?
5 Priscilla, correct. I rise this evening with respect to a couple of issues that became budget items in the May 9th budget meeting. And I had to express my displeasure with respect to a couple of the raises, increases in salary that were granted. One of the raises, increase in salary, was about 17%. And I question the wisdom of agreeing to such increases, especially during these strained economic times that many of the municipalities are encountering.
Mr. Carrera, please be specific. You said 17%?
The engineer. The engineer's job.
The Director of Public Works.
Director of Public Works.
Was not a raise. The Director of Public Works was not a raise.
Okay.
It was an increase to potentially hire a Director of Public Works because we've been having difficulty.
You say potato and I say potato,
Well,
I guess.
my opinion is that at this time, perhaps an effort was made to advertise the job at the salary of $92,000, and then there were no applicants. I just question. I mean, just today, the city of Woonsocket fell into state hands. Our neighboring municipality, West Warwick, is on the same path. The city of Providence, unless there are huge changes there, will probably fall into receiver's hands as well. And that's not something that I don't think anyone that loves their city or their state wants to see. We need to fundamentally change the culture. We need to begin to put fiscal restraints in every aspect of municipal government, because it's abundantly clear, ladies and gentlemen, that the state is not going to come to our rescue. They didn't in 2003. They have a new mechanism now which essentially seizes the city's finances and takes all control out of the administration, from the administration, in their city councils. I have too much respect and too much love for the city and its charter to essentially ignore that. And I'm standing here this evening to voice my displeasure with respect to those issues. And there's one more issue. Council President, if I may. Department of Personnel, I understand that there was a semantical exchange with respect to defunding it. Well, it's Chapter 14 in the Charter. It provides for Director of Personnel. But that provision didn't come from an ordinance. It didn't flow from a council. It flowed from a council that agreed to put the item in an election and have the voters vote affirmatively or negatively. Obviously, they voted affirmatively. The issue of the funding, as far as I'm concerned, is merely semantics, because when the people voted for that, they also knew that there'd come an economic cost to that. So I seriously question the motivation with respect to defunding the personnel's position. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Just as a quick note, Mr. Carrera, your answer can be found in the Towers and Perrins report from 1998. Next up is Susan Blake.
Good evening. My name is Susan Blake. I live at 16 Richard Street. I've been a resident of Cranston for the last 20 years. Previously, I lived across the street at 23 Richard Street. And before that, I lived on Pontiac Avenue over near the Woodlawn Funeral Home. So I've been accustomed to living close to and being a neighbor to various types of businesses, restaurants, salons, the funeral home, etc. In all of my years, up until last year, I have never even seen one rat, ever. Day or night, never had a care taking my daughter out trick-or-treating for fear of crossing paths with a rat. But starting last year, they became not only present, but bold, out in the daylight, running through my backyard, jumping out at neighbors walking their dogs. The dogs would grab them and by the neck and shake them. I mean, this is a freaky situation. The city inspector, with regards to pest control, has been out over the course of the last year at the behest of various neighbors on my street and also on Potter Street to come and bait for the rats, take away the carcasses, etc. And he's done that. My issue here tonight is to plead with you, and I'm sorry that Mr. Navarro isn't here because I've been trying to get some action with him too, to take it upon you to somehow address the situation more than just on a call basis. It's obviously an issue that's not just on my street. It's in the entire Auburn neighborhood. I've spoken to many, many neighbors. Just between my building, my next door neighbor, and the people across the street, we have 8 school-aged children. So you can do the math on the number of school kids in this area, and we're coming into the warm weather, and I've pleaded with Mr. Navarro. All it's going to take is one kid roasting a marshmallow at night, dropping it and going to pick it up and gets bit. That's all it's going to take, and this is going to blow wide open. And I know that it's not easy to control rats, and everybody needs to do their share. I don't have dogs, but a lot of my neighbors do. They pick up the poop. There are some neighbors that don't. They let their dogs roam freely in their yards. The poop goes out there. The rats come and eat it. There's various food sources. There's also various places in my neighborhood that the city inspector and Mr. Navarro knows where these rats are living. Why is the city not acting and laying down the law with these property owners? I mean, it's called a harborage. It's right in your rules of, living in the city. We all have to abide by the rules as best we can. And I've listened to various other people talk about their own individual concerns. But the bottom line is, I really don't want to have anybody get sick from one of the diseases that these creatures carry, and I don't want to have any children get hurt by being bit by a rat. And so I'm just asking you to do whatever you can to help turn up the heat and maybe hire an outside contractor to come in and do a blanket application of bait, something, because what's being done isn't working, and it's just multiplying. Thank you.
Ms. Blake, this administration is responding to you, though. You have had an issue where no one has been out there. You've asked, and they've sent out the rodent control people, and they're doing that. Okay.
But it's a cyclical thing. It's not getting any better. It's just treating the problem comes back, you put out the bait, the rats come back, you put out the bait, the rats come back. And every time they come back, they're a little bolder. It's disgusting to walk out into the driveway and find dead rat out there. I cover my trash. I do my share. And I know that not everybody does, but those who aren't need to be addressed. If they have a physical structure on their property that they own where you can see the rats going in and out, and the rat inspector has been out there and taken the dead rats out of that physical structure, then there's knowledge of a problem, of a harborage. And those specific sites in the area need to be called out and dealt with in the light of day. They're being treated like little secret places everybody knows they're there and nobody's taken care of.
We hear your concerns, administration's here, they've taken their notes, and
Thank you.
we'll pass on the information to Councilman Navarro also.
Thank you.
Robert Haratunian.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. My name is Robert Haratunian, 6 Harvard Street. I'm also a member of the Tax Assessment Board of Review, and unfortunately, none of the other 2 members or myself were able to attend the recent Finance Committee meeting, but we decided that we'd like to present this evening an open letter before the full council to Councilman Stephen A. Sykos. Councilman Sykos, on February 17, 2011, you summoned the 3 members of the Tax Assessment Board of Review to appear before the Finance Committee to answer questions. You cited Section 716 of the City Charter pertaining to proceedings and Section 3.08.050 relating to specific meetings requirements. At that time, you stated that you could find no records of any meeting. I stand before you tonight, Councilman Sykos, and tell you that I have been a member of this board since 1993, and since 2001, I have personally taken notes at every meeting detailing each appellant's case. These notes are included in every packet for every meeting, along with all the necessary documents, i.e. appraisals, comparisons, recent sales, pictures, field cards, appeal number, file number, etc. All these records are kept by the assessor's office. Since we do not work for the city, we have no office, and they're mostly in the vault. I know this to be a fact because when I review the documentation, the notes brought prior to a decision were referred to the packet containing the said information. So these records do exist. The procedure for the appellants to follow, as you probably well know, is when they receive their notification of the assessment, they appeal to the assessor, and then if they're denied, they go before the board. If there's a further denial, then they have a window of opportunity to go before a superior court. The exception being when you have a reval, such as we just had recently. In the case of revaluation, then the first step is to go before the revaluation agent, in this case, Vision Appraisal, and ask for an abatement or an explanation. If that's denied, then you follow the other 3 steps. I might further mention that this board, many years ago, and I was part of it, we went before the legislature of the state and had the revaluation process changed. When I first came on the board, those of you old enough to remember, the revaluation process was every 10 years. Having been in the real estate business for many years, along with my colleagues at the time, we thought this was highly unjust and inequitable because of the fluctuations of the market. So we planned a presentation before the legislature to move it to every 3 years, which was adopted. So now we have it every 3 years. Many states vary from this. For example, Florida does it every year, but most states have now moved to the 3-year. I might also mention that the decision of the Board of Review is final and absolute. That's per the charter. Then the appellant has 30 days to file an appeal to Superior Court. I might mention, Councilman Sykos, that your proclivity to reduce the budget in any manner is indeed commendable. However, your direction is questionable. Rather than investigating departments of great magnitude involving hundreds of thousands of dollars, to wit, public safety, public works, school department, and others, where the overtime, layers of bureaucracy, and questions of possible pension fraud have emerged, represent tens of thousands of wasted taxpayer dollars. I recall one DPW, and you may also, who was videotaped tampering with a time clock. Another incident involved the crossing guards, which were privatized by then Mayor Laffey, resulting in thousands of dollars saved in salaries and benefits. Instead, you decide to focus your efforts on two minuscule entities, the Tax Assessment Board of Review and the Board of Canvassers. The first has a budget of $13,000 for 3 members who put in endless hours on their own. And the second pays
Bob, could you start to,
$4,000.
you got about half a minute, so can you start to wrap it up?
Excuse me?
You got about half a minute, so can you start to wrap it up?
Okay.
Make your points.
What we'd like to mention is that we have had, since Councilman Stichels made his presentation, the chairman of our board, Rory Budlong, who has an esteemed record and reputation. He was the former director of appraisal for Old Stone Bank with its 16 employees and over $3 million budget, has decided he wants no further part of this if he's going to be subjected to this scrutiny, and he's decided to resign. The 2 remaining members are carrying on because that represents a quorum. We have interviewed 31 people for this position, qualified individuals, CPAs, attorneys, real estate appraisers, as well as brokers, and none of them want to have any part of it because of Councilman Stichels' interference. They don't want to be subjected to the scrutiny, and also they find that the stipend has been removed. They said absolutely not. We all thought that since Councilman Stichels is so hell-bent on saving money for the city, that perhaps he could make a magnanimous gesture and symbolic gesture by rescinding his $4,000 annual stipend and his $1,800 expense allowance. And further, he might persuade his colleagues on the council to do the same. And we just found it a little bit incongruous that one position was given a $15,000 raise for one individual, and another position, $8,000 to another single individual, and yet they rescinded $4,000 per person on the Board of Canvassers and $13,000 for a 3-member board. That's all I wish to say at this time.
Do you wish to respond, Mr. Stichels? Because he did mention you by name, so you have that right.
Yeah, I'd like to make a couple of points. The first point on the minutes, I went to the tax assessor's office and asked for the minutes of the meetings. I was told there were no minutes and that the only record was a tape recording. So the fact that, I'm telling you what I was told, all right? The fact that you keep records, that's nice, but it isn't an official record. It has to be an official record of the committee. The second point I'd like to make is that the Board of Tax Assessment Review, as you're well aware, would meet over 100 times a year. Official meetings, I believe, was over 120 times in order to collect a $50 per meeting stipend. So I found that inappropriate, that every opportunity that you had to meet, you would meet for 15 or 20 minutes, 122 times in order to collect a stipend. So yes, I thought that was inappropriate. And I made a proposal that the board should not be paid. You raised the Board of Canvassers. They were paid $4,000 in an off-election year, and they met, according to their minutes, for a total of 73 minutes. I feel it's inappropriate to pay people that kind of money for 73 minutes of meeting. So I'm sorry that you disagree with that, but it did not come out of any malice, or it came straight out of information that I was given by the tax assessor.
No. You may in writing if you wish to the council. You may in writing, or you can come to the next meeting, but you've had your time, and he's answered your allegations, so. All right, that's it. Dick Tomlins is the next speaker that signed up.
Mr. President, members of the council, Dick Tomlins, 400 Farmington Avenue, Cranston, Rhode Island. Just as a quick comment on this Director of Public Works and on the money, I think what we're saying here is kind of a distinction without a difference. If it happens, it's going to be money spent. And I'd also, this is a rhetorical question, but I'd like to know, legally someday, when councilmen or women vote, do they vote with the card they hold, or do they vote on anything other than being a member of the council as a citizen? In other words, do you vote as a bricklayer, a lawyer, a doctor, or do you vote just as a member of the council? I would think the latter, but I'm no lawyer. I spent a year in law. I did terrible because I wasn't one that could write yes, but, maybe, therefore, I guess, the next statement. I want to talk for a moment about this personnel director situation. I've had a couple of private, if you will, private-public discussions about it. And from my point of view, it goes back to what I've said almost ever since I've addressed this council. If you're thinking of any changes, particular major changes, the charter school stands out as one of the worst examples. You start at the level where the changes are to be made and with the individuals that are affected thereof. Now, having gone through that process, and you make a determination that you've got nowhere with these individuals. They weren't going to change their mind, they were going to fight, but you decided to carry on, then at least you have the knowledge of what you have to deal with. This was not done in this case, and I just say it again and again. We do too much of that, where we start at the top, and then a lot of things are thrown out that really don't get the proper answers or the review or the questions as a result of that. Because when you start to go down the line, you're not reaching everybody, and that forces the bottom to come up, maybe in a way that you weren't ready to handle or you thought was going to happen. I just want to say a couple of words, too, on this business of the city and the refuge, the rats and everything. I've thought for a long time, each ward member, and then the councilman at large, should try to set up some public people to work with them. I have in my neighborhood, as an example, people that are not keeping up their yards. I know it creates rats. My wife got so upset, she's spending now $40 every quarter to have a real professional to come in our yard to make sure that we are not infested. And I remember when Mayor Napolitano was on the bench, and I went to many of these locations with him. He went with his robe on. He went with his judge's robe on, went up and rang the doorbell and said, "We have a complaint. You've got a pile of wood all over the yard," or whatever it was. And this was some homes in Western Cranston, too, I might want. And I followed up. It was extremely effective. Maybe we ought to get back to a little of that. The last thing, and Richard, that was mild. And I did have supper tonight, so I want you to understand that. But Mr. Stikos, I've stood here now too long to witness you standing up and not saluting that flag or participating in the Pledge of Allegiance. You're the worst.
That's a personal attack. That's something that you need to take at another time. That's a definite personal attack. It's not
personal. You are representing me.
It's not questioning his abilities or his judgment as a council.
How do you know that?
You're out of order.
You cannot
either-
make that statement. Stand
Either-
up.
Either finish your remarks without attacking the councilman or sit down.
Well, I'll continue. I'll assure you now. It's the most disingenuous thing I have ever seen with those of us that fought for this country to protect that flag.
Point of order, please.
That's it. You're done.
All right.
Sit down.
Well, I will keep up the battle, I can assure you. And you can throw me off the podium anytime you want. That's already been done. There are no policemen tonight, but you got a couple of hefty firemen there. They may give you. But this battle will not go. And believe me, it is a public battle. This is a public room. There's taxpayers that pay for this room. Taxpayers that's paying you your salaries. And there's a flag up on that wall. And anybody in this room that disrespects that flag should be brought to order. I'm telling you right now, and there's got to be rules and regulations that would attest to that. So this will not stand. This will not stand. It cannot stand. No one can defend this council, this public, or any citizens in it if it disrespects what we are. That's what that is. It's a disrespect for you.
5-minute recess. I'd call a 5-minute recess. We're done. Unless you stop talking. Is there any other member from the public that wishes to speak on a non-agenda item? There being none, election of city officials. We have a potential appointment to the Library Board of Trustees. Jack A. Tragar, appointment would be June 1st, 2012 through July 31st, 2014. Came highly recommended by some members of the board. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Under executive communications, a report on hiring of special counsel and consultants. Do we have that? Yes, Councilman. There was an attached, 58 Glen Avenue.
Ward 1? Yes.
02905. Okay, and council, we have the legal expense analysis, and it's year-to-date. And I guess you also have a request, Mr. Cordy?
Yes, thank you, Council President. Cranston Fire Lieutenant Thomas D. Conway is requested to be placed on pension. Lieutenant Conway has met all necessary requirements, and we urge you to support his request.
Okay, he's met all the requirements you said, right?
That's correct.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
The motion and second, any discussion? Where's Ms. Sisler when you need her? Is this the pension issue she was talking about? This is everyday business. I don't understand. Okay, clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. And another request?
Yes, Council President. Cranston firefighter Stephen Croft has requested to be continued in service for 1 year. Firefighter Croft has met all the necessary requirements. We urge you to support his request.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
There's a motion and a second, any discussion? Clerk, please take the roll.
Yes.
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 Yes. Under communications, I had asked at one of the sessions to be apprised, and I'd like to make this as a request for the upcoming Finance Committee meeting. We're going to be discussing at that time, if the council agrees this evening, to pass on a tax incentive program to TACO. And the question I had was on the tax incentive that the Park Cinema, the Park Theater is under. And I would like a report from either Mr. DeBoni or anyone in administration as to ascertain the employment that is connected with the tax incentive. It just boggles my mind that a function hall which has had some successes here and there, which is operating on a very part-time business, could have ever met the requirements of the employment portion of the tax incentive. So I'd like a report. We were told, I know Councilman Stichels asked a question. I also asked at another session about who is watching the store on these tax incentives as far as employment numbers, figures, that they're adhering to what we extended to them. So I would like to have that at the next Finance Committee meeting. That being said, council member communications. Councilman Stichels.
Yes, I'd just like a report on, during the budget hearings, there was talk of that the custodians at various city buildings, the recommendation, I think, or informal recommendation, was that they pick up litter at their respective buildings rather than calling the recreation department to drive over and do it. And I just, I think the administration said they would look at that, and I would ask that they inform the council what was done about that.
We looked into it, Councilman.
I was trying to, you sent me an email saying that indeed that was going to happen in the future. So I just was hoping that you would tell everyone else that, because I thought that was a good decision.
Councilman Stichels, that was in the form of a question, correct?
I'm sorry, I don't really understand what's going on. Perhaps the planets are not aligned well for me tonight, but I received an email from Mr. Cordy saying that the administration had indeed decided that it was a good move to have the custodians assigned to specific buildings pick up the litter outside those buildings rather than have the recreation department do it, which I would like to salute them for doing that. And I just thought this would be an opportunity for the administration to inform the rest of the council of what I was informed of in an email.
So I guess for the rest of us, the question is that being done?
I thought the communication was pretty clear. Yes, sir, it's being done.
Okay. Okay, very good. Thank you. Anything else, Councilman Stichels?
No, thank you.
Councilman Santa Maria.
Thank you, Council President. I have one item on, and I have two others I'd like to ask. Street paving list?
Yes, sir, Councilman, I do have it with me tonight. I do want to apologize from the standpoint that, and this isn't anything negative against the clerk's office, she had to make a couple of changes to the docket late Friday, actually a midday Friday, and I did not receive those changes, which included the paving request, until this morning. So I do have it here, and I will leave it with the clerk to distribute with the rest of you.
Thank you. Is that negotiable or
And
non-negotiable?
if you'd like to discuss this list, Public Works meeting is coming up very soon.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Could we put that on the docket, please, through the chair, through the president?
Put that on the docket for discussion at the next Public Works meeting.
I'm going to ask this next question just to get on the record, but I've spoken with Carlos and Evan on the dollar store, the dollar store / Walmart, another 3:30 a.m. dumpster emptying, woke up the neighborhood again. I told them the last time it would be a show cause hearing. I spoke to Evan to try to get a letter out to corporate to let them, or the dumpster company, to let them know what's going on. So could you take the floor from here?
Yeah, at the risk of disclosing my undercover operation tonight, I know Mr. Cray, I won't tell anybody. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go by the dumpster tonight and to see if there's a particular company on the dumpster. I'll call that company and find out who is requesting the trash pickup at that particular time, and then we will find out who the culprit is,
And have them in for show cause.
and then have them at the show cause. I think it's better than having some dollar store employee come that
Do you have to get deputized for
doesn't know
this
how
or
to,
or
doesn't know how
sworn
to
in or
add
anything?
past a dollar type thing,
Okay.
yeah.
You don't have to get deputized or sworn in or anything?
No, I'm going to take this one by myself. Let's go. Right. And I think it would show also that we're representing Ward 4 in council business.
Okay, Tom. One last question, Evan, while I have you up there. I have three law firms.
Okay.
I added them up quickly, totaling $200,000 in legal fees.
Who?
Little Medeiros, Kinder, Bullman, and Whitney, Vetter and White, and Vin Regusta. All in regards to arbitrations, pension issues, grievances, yada, yada, yada. A few of the items, is there going to be an end to them, or are we in the home stretch, or? I know this is a running total, so.
Not as long as there's billable hours.
Let's see. You're referring to, okay, Little Medeiros, Kinder, Bullman, and Whitney. That involves a policeman's bill of rights. That's something that we didn't necessarily bring on ourselves, but yet we're forced to expend money on it. Apparently, it's a rather contentious situation and with many witnesses involved. And I understand that even after the arbitration is over, or whatever they call it, the next remedy is to Superior Court if that happens. So in all honesty, of course, I don't think there's any end in sight. What's your next one?
Vetter and White. That's another arbitration and a couple of grievances.
I know that they're handling pension and labor issues for the city.
Okay.
It looks like there are all kinds of diverse, different matters. I will look into it and I will get back to you on that.
Is there a possibility of having an executive session to discuss these, or would that fall into that realm?
On perhaps some of the issues we could talk about, I know the policeman's bill of rights is very tricky. I know that, I don't even know what the whole case is about in that one. Someone said it's confidential. I couldn't even be told what
Okay.
the whole issue was there. So I couldn't even pass that on, what that was about. Of course, there's a lawyer there, Pat Quinlan, who is a bargain at any price. He looks fine to me.
I don't know this Quinlan guy. Do I know this Quinlan?
Yeah, he's good.
All right, I'll hold off on that request till next month if possible.
If you want, I can email the solicitor to find out if he can give a sketch of what each firm is working on, if you'd like.
That'd be great.
I'll report back to you on that.
Could I request that for the next council meeting, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
Solicitor, while you're there,
Yes.
back to the issue that Councilman Santa Maria and I have been working on with the issues surrounding the Walmart Plaza. One of the neighbors who has been helpful in monitoring the situation has noticed that there have been some surveyors in the area, and on further evidence, it was intimated through several sources that the property is being prepped for sale. The question I have is that all of the restrictions and/or covenants that we've established through the approval process for those businesses that are there, up to and including the trash pickup issues, those get transferred to or disclosed to the potential new purchaser, is that correct?
I would assume so. I would check with the clerk on the return, whether or not those are recorded in the land evidence record, so that someone would have an occasional look at them.
Well, I think, I haven't bought any or sold any commercial real estate lately, but I know that in residential real estate, there is a disclosure form that has to be filled out, and I would hope that for the record, that someone get the word out to whomever the realtor is, that there'd be disclosures concerning the strict limitations about hours of operation and/or trash pickup.
I would say this, that if someone buys the plaza, let's say, and the tenants stay there, of course, they'll be under the same restrictions. If a new tenant were to apply for a license, then you'll tell them when they come before you that these are the restrictions. So either way, the word will get out.
And the last request I had was, are we prepared yet to have an executive session at Public Works regarding our neighbors to the west, the northwest? The landfill et al.
The pungent neighbor.
Yes.
We are approaching that. I think I would anticipate, I have a meeting tomorrow with the gentleman from Broad Rock that was before the council on the concept. I know that you assisted Assistant Smith and I on this, and I think we may have something to talk about after tomorrow's meeting on what the council might like to see out of an agreement with Broad Rock if the council should choose to go forward on that. That's probably going to be the first order of business, and we have another meeting tomorrow on the landfill issue, and we have several more meetings on other sewer people, let's say.
If I could, Rose, our next Public Works meeting is this coming Monday? Is that too soon?
No.
Why don't we advertise a executive session?
For Broad Rock, the meeting, the negotiation is at 2 o'clock tomorrow in my office. I can email you after to see how close we are.
Okay, I'd like to see that happen, okay. Any other council member communications? There being none, is there any old business? Rose, I guess that's no, right? I know, you used to be in the assistant clerk, Jack. And the introduction of new business. Is that it? Okay. Is there a motion to refer the new business to the committees? I'm sorry.
So moved.
Is there a motion, first of all? To move the business? There's a motion? Is there a second?
Second.
There was some discussion, Councilman Favicchio?
I just wanted to bring something up. I had sent a couple of proposed ordinances, and I know that Maria was out, so that they may not have gotten to it. I just would like to, Rose, to, keep an eye out for them. I don't mind if they go on next month, but I sent in a couple of emails Friday, but she may have been gone by that time.
Well, I guess that what's going to be crucial, Councilman, is if she returns before the agenda for the June meeting is set. So if there's a question that she may not be, you may want to resend those to Rosalba.
I will, thank you.
And those have gone through have you checked with Pat or the solicitor to see if they?
I had spoken to Chris Rawson a while back, but I'll do that again.
Okay, there's a motion, I'm sorry, Council.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, and now you had a request to
I'd like
convene
to,
a meeting of the Rules Committee.
I'll get a date certain as soon as I can. Pat's drafting an ordinance change on the zoning.
And that's a subcommittee, I don't, does that require?
We usually call it before the term starts, in the middle of the term, so. So that's okay to request a meeting?
Yeah, just figure out what the date's going to be and.
So anyone else is on the Rules Committee, if they have any rules change they want to make, if you could have those.
I believe there may have to be a new appointment because I believe Councilman Pelletier was on that. I was on that. You were on that.
Yep. Jim was on it. I think Steve was on it too.
Yeah, you might want to look into who was on that the first.
The major issue was the zoning, on a zoning change, it doesn't require a committee meeting. It still has to.
Yeah, we don't have to get into the
So
discussion
we have to get that fixed, so that's why.
The other issue was the traveling of business for resolutions. If they don't have financial impact, if they can be just brought directly to the council as opposed to going through the process. Councilman Arquette.
Thank you, Council President. Just an announcement for those listening. There'll be a meeting tomorrow night, Tax Review Commission meeting will be in this chamber. I believe it's 6:30, so any interested members of the public would like to attend tomorrow night. Thank you.
Okay, I don't believe there's any miscellaneous business. The next City Council regular meeting will be held on Monday, June 25th at 7 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Good night.